Once upon a time there were two poets, Wilfred Owen and Rupert Brooke. Hey guys! Owen is famous for writing the poem Dulce et Decorum Est during the First World War, while also being in the First World War. Ah! Whereas Brooke is famous for writing The Soldier. If I should die, think only this of me, that there is some corner of a foreign field, that is forever England. There shall be in that rich earth a richer dust concealed, a dust whom England bore, shaped, made aware, gave once her flowers to love, her ways to roam, a body of England's breathing, English air, washed by the rivers, blessed by sons of home. And think, this heart all evil shed away, a pulse in the internal minds, no less, gives somewhere back the thoughts by England given, her sights and sounds, dream happy as her day, and laughter learnt of friends, and gentleness, and hearts at peace, under an English heaven. It was written at home. Ugh. Both poems ask a pressing question. Is it sweet and fitting to die for one's country? Well, I sure think it is. To die for one's country during a war is an honor. I don't really see that. My poem was written at a premier time, the start of the war, 1914 to be exact. And how is that a good time to write a realistic poem? Don't worry, old Will. The boys'll be all home for Christmas. I think you might be wrong. I never made it to war, but my pre-war poetry perfectly reflects the public sentiment at the time. Yeah, I guess that's true. But if you never made it to war, then how could you write about dying in it? I have my beliefs, and you have yours. It is an honorable thing to do. Soldiers, at least, if I were one, don't want people to mourn for them. They want civilians to understand that their deaths are selfless tributes to their country. They die at peace, becoming one with their homeland. Not only that, but a soldier, and all people for that matter, owe it to their country. The country gave us life and made us who we are today. The least we could do is protect it. The motherland has given us so many wonderful things. The least we could do is repay it in full with our own lives in which she gave us in the first place. It is the only way for our souls to properly rest. And above all, a soldier's death is redemption, and going to war can be a new start for some. You okay, Rupert? Years prior to the war and the writing of his poem, Brooke had a nervous breakdown and saw the war as a possibility of cleansing and rebirth. Thanks, Will. I never did go to war, though I do believe I would have perished proudly on the battlefield, however. I understand, Rupert. Do you mind if I explain my perspective, though, Rupert? Go for it. See, I was actually in the war, and I wrote a poem after you died, titled Dulce et Decorum Est. What does that mean? It is Latin for it is sweet and fitting. What is that supposed to mean? Well, the entire quote is the phrase Dulce et decorum est pro patria mori, which means it is sweet and fitting to die for one's country. Oh, I see. Now it's the question which our poem addresses. Exactly. As you know, I think it is far from being sweet and fitting, at least from my experience in the war. Please enlighten me. I think it's best if we look at my poem to start with. All right then. I happen to have a copy of it on me right now, actually. A scroll? Hey, don't judge me. Sometimes scrolls are the only thing you can find, and they're formal. Fair enough. Let's see it. Dulce et Decorum Est by Wilfred Owen. Let me know what you think. Bent double, like old beggars, under sacks, knock-kneed, coughing like hags, we cursed through sludge, till on the haunting flares we turned our backs, and towards our distant rest began to trudge. Men marched asleep. Many had lost their boots, but limped on, bloodshod. All went lame, all blind, drunk with fatigue, deaf even to the hoots of gas shell dropping softly behind. Gas! Gas! Quick, boys! An ecstasy of fumbling, fitting the clumsy helmets just in time. But someone still was yelling out and stumbling, and floundering like a man in fire or lime. Dim through the misty panes and thick green light, as under a green sea, I saw him drowning. In all my dreams before my helpless sight, he plunges at me, guttering, choking, drowning. If in some smothering dreams you too could pace behind the wagon that we flung him in, and watch the white eyes writhing in his hanging face like a devil sick of sin, if you could hear it at every jolt, the blood come gargling from the froth-corrupted lungs, obscene as cancer, bitter as the cud, of vile, incurable sores on innocent tongues, my friend, you would not tell with such high zest to children ardent for some desperate glory the old lie, dulci et decorum est pro patria mori. I saw many people die in very terrible ways. As I see it, there is never a world in which it is sweet and fitting to die for your own country. It is the utmost cruelty and an undeserved torture that nobody should have to endure. I see. I was a poet at war, a poet of war, and most importantly, a poet against war, and I still very much am against it. I wrote this poem near the end of the First World War, but the war was still enough to desensitize me, making it hard to write anything truly poetic. I wanted to show how brutal war really is, and reveal the true nature of it to people like yourself. No offense, Rupert. None taken well. You sugar-coated the war. So to speak, I removed the coating of sugar to reveal how disgusting war actually is. There is a huge amount of pain and suffering that soldiers witnessed during the war, as seen in the lines, drunk with fatigue and gargling from corrupted lungs. All the soldiers are just so exhausted, and the gas comes out of nowhere, hitting us unprepared, drowning the men in a green mist. It truly is unbearable and awful. Also notice how I constantly use we and us and our. I want the reader to become lost in the poem, much how us soldiers were lost at war. There should be a feeling of dread resonating within them. So, Rupert, your poem painted a beautiful, single man's death. My poem also painted a single man's death, but in a graphic, factual, and real way. He was choking and grabbing for life, all the way till the bitter end. I think that you are right, however, that before war, we do have the noble mindset of doing the right thing and owing it to our country. But after being out there, even for a small amount of time, you realize it really is a lie. Dulci et decorum est pro patria mori. I do understand, and I do think you're right. I'm sorry for everything you had to experience during the war. It is something that shouldn't be viewed as glorious or redeeming. It's all right, Rupert. War needs to be understood, but people should know what they're getting into before they risk their lives. It is far from a sweet death. I agree. In conclusion, Brooks' views of war were heavily romanticized and influenced by the public sentiment at the time. His poem was heavily revered at the time and still is today, but paints a bad picture to base what war was really like. On the other hand, Owen was able to paint a much more realistic and gruesome picture of war that was a revealing shout to much of the public at the time. Dulci et decorum est exposed much of the horror that was present in the war, such as chemical warfare and trench warfare, which weren't present at the times where war may have been viewed as glorious or redeeming. The end.